Number 5. Krista Pike. In 1995, Krista Pike was an 18-year-old high school dropout and drug addict who joined the Job Corps, a vocational training program in Knoxville, Tennessee. There, she met and fell in love with Tatterall Shipp, a fellow dropout and gang member. They shared an interest in Satanism and the occult. Pike became jealous of Colleen Slemmer, a 19-year-old classmate who she believed was attempting to steal her boyfriend. She decided to kill her with the help of Shipp and another friend, Shadola Peterson. On January 12, 1995, they told Slemmer they wanted to make peace by offering her some marijuana. The three lured her to a secluded spot near the University of Tennessee campus, where they tortured and stabbed her to death with Peterson acting as a lookout. Pike carved a pentagram on Slemmer's chest and kept a piece of her skull as a souvenir. She openly bragged about the murder to other students, even to the extent of showing them the fragment of Slemmer's skull. Pike was arrested 2 days later. She confessed to the crime but claimed she only wanted to scare Slemmer. She was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder on March 22, 1996. Pike was sentenced to death on March 30, 1996, becoming one of the youngest women to receive a death sentence in the United States since the reinstatement of the death penalty in 1976. She is currently on death row at Deborah K. Johnson Rehabilitation Center in Nashville. Number 4. Toni Jo Henry. Toni Jo Henry was a former prostitute and drug addict who married Claude "Cowboy" Henry, a convicted murderer, in 1939. She vowed to break him out of the Texas State Penitentiary, where he was serving a 50-year sentence for murder. She enlisted the help of Harold Archie Burks, an ex-convict and Army deserter, who claimed to know the layout of the prison. The pair first robbed a bank in Arkansas in order to secure funds for the breakout. They then persuaded 2 teenagers to break into a gun store and steal guns and ammunition for them to use. On their way to Texas, they hitched a ride with Joseph P. Calloway, a car salesman. As they drove past Jennings, Louisiana, Toni Jo and Archie robbed Calloway at gunpoint. They proceeded to lock him in the trunk of his car and drive down a country road. They planned to use the Ford as a getaway vehicle. However, they soon decided to pull the car over on a country track. Calloway was ordered out of the car, ushered into a field, and told to strip, as Henry wanted a change of clothes for her husband. Henry then shot Calloway in the head with a .32 caliber revolver, and he died at the scene. Burks, concerned with the lengths Toni Henry would go to her husband, abandoned the plan and took the car. Henry took a bus to Shreveport and sought refuge with her Aunt Emma, to whom she confessed. Emma then reported the crime to her brother, a Louisiana state trooper, and Henry was arrested. She was extradited to Louisiana and tried for first-degree murder. She was convicted and sentenced to death by electrocution after 3 trials. Henry was executed on November 28, 1942, becoming the only woman ever to die in Louisiana's electric chair. Number 3. Cynthia Kaufman. Cynthia Kaufman was a former drug addict who married James Marlowe, a neo-Nazi car thief and ex-convict, in 1986. The pair went on a methamphetamine-fueled crime spree across California and Arizona between October and November of the same year. Over the course of 2 months, they kidnapped, raped, and killed 4 women. Their victims, in chronological order, were 32-year-old Sandra Neary from Costa Mesa, 35-year-old Pamela Simmons from Bullhead City, 20-year-old Corinna Novus from Redlands, and 19-year-old Lynell Murray from Huntington Beach. On November 14, 1986, police were summoned to a mountain lodge at Big Bear City, California, where the proprietor identified his latest guests as Marlowe and Kaufman. A 100-man posse found the lodge empty and fanned out through the woods. At 3 p.m., Marlowe and Kaufman were found hiking along a mountain road. They surrendered without a fight, both wearing outfits stolen from the dry cleaning shop where Lynell Murray worked. Within hours, Kaufman confessed and led police to the body of Corinna Novus, found in a shallow grave, sodomized and strangled. Kaufman claimed that Marlowe beat, brainwashed, and starved her, which prevented her from running away when the crime spree began. However, the California jury did not buy her defense of battered woman syndrome. She was convicted of 2 murders and sentenced to death in 1989, becoming the first woman to receive a death sentence in California since the reinstatement of the death penalty in 1977. A trial in 1992 convicted her of another murder, for which she received a sentence of life imprisonment. She is currently on death row at the Central California Women's Facility. Number 2. Frances Newton. On April 7, 1987, in Houston, Texas, Frances Newton shot and killed her husband Adrian and their 2 children, 7-year-old Alton and 21-month-old Farah. She shot them with a .25 caliber pistol that belonged to her lover. She then concealed the murder weapon in a paper bag in her parents' abandoned home. Newton and her husband had separated a month prior to the killings. Although they lived together, they were both dating other people. Houston police later presented evidence that Newton's husband was a drug dealer and was in debt to his supplier. 3 weeks before the murders, Newton purchased life insurance policies on her husband and her daughter, each worth $50,000. She named herself as beneficiary on both policies and made claims following the killings. Newton maintained her innocence, asserting that a drug dealer had committed the murders. She stated that she forged her husband's signature to prevent him from discovering that money had been set aside to pay the premiums. Prosecutors cited these facts as the basis for her motive. On November 17, 1988, Newton was sentenced to death. She spent 17 years on death row at the Huntsville unit in Texas. 2 hours before her first scheduled execution on December 1, 2004, Governor Rick Perry granted her a 120-day reprieve to allow more time for testing forensic evidence in the case. However, no new evidence was found to exonerate her. She was executed by lethal injection on September 14, 2005. She was the 3rd woman to be executed in Texas since the reinstatement of the death penalty in 1982. She did not make any final statement or request any last meal. Number 1. Taylor Renee Parker. On October 9, 2020 in New Boston, Texas, Taylor Renee Parker killed her pregnant friend, 21-year-old Reagan Simmons Hancock, and cut out her unborn baby to take as her own. Parker was afraid to lose her boyfriend due to her inability to have a child after a hysterectomy. She faked her own pregnancy for months, even having a gender reveal party. She was jealous of Simmons Hancock, who was 35 weeks pregnant with her second child. On that fateful day, Parker went to Simmons Hancock's home and stabbed the pregnant woman over 100 times with a scalpel, beating her in the head and slashing her abdomen. She then removed the baby girl from the womb while Simmons Hancock was still alive. Parker left her victim to bleed to death, as well as Simmons Hancock's 3-year-old daughter, who was in the house at the time of the killing. Later that morning, Parker claimed she'd just given birth after being pulled over by a state trooper for speeding and driving erratically. The baby, Braxleen Seiji Hancock, was taken to a hospital in Oklahoma where she was pronounced dead. Parker was arrested after the police discovered the crime scene and found the murder weapon in her car. She was charged with capital murder and kidnapping. On October 3, 2022, Parker was found guilty after a Texas jury deliberated for just over an hour and rejected her insanity defense. She was sentenced to death on November 9, 2022. She was transferred within hours of her sentencing to the Christina Crane unit in Gatesville for processing, and then moved to the Mountain View unit, where all of the state's female death row inmates are housed. Parker is the 7th woman on death row in Texas, and is not currently scheduled to be executed.